Good morning, class. Happy Thursday. Today is the last day of April, which means we have less than 1 month left of school, and for seniors, well, basically a half a month left, which feels kind of weird considering that it seems like it's ending soon, but at the same time it feels like we've been doing this online learning since forever. Today's task is to look at different scenarios, more current scenarios within the past year or two, and how the Constitution should and has been applied to those situations today. So first thing I would like you to do is review Quizlet. I have updated the terms on Quizlet. I will also be creating at some point, and it might not be ready today, but before next week, a separate Quizlet for later amendments, and I'll explain why in a second. But you will be having a test scheduled for next week, Tuesday. So be prepared for that, which is why you should be studying Quizlet, and once again I've added terms to the Quizlet you already have. Second thing you will do is fill out kind of a slideshow worksheet with different constitutional scenarios, and then I'll explain details for next week's test at the end of this video. That slideshow is the only homework due for today, 3 p.m. So I'm going to give you 4 different situations, and in each situation you are going to provide your own response answering these questions. For each one, you are more than welcome to do additional research on your own if you want. It's not required. What I'm looking for is an answer that is complete, so you're answering all these questions in detail, a response that's appropriate, it makes sense, and lastly a response that shows depth of thought, that you've really thought about different perspectives here. These situations don't necessarily have clear answers. There's a lot of nuance and gray area, which is why I'm bringing them up to you. So let me explain each situation. If you have a question about one, feel free to ask me, or I would rather you do your own research, be a little independent, and see if you can come up with an answer to your own question if possible. So first one, a while ago it was proposed that a question should be added to this year's Census 2020. That question would ask those who are filling out the census to identify their citizenship status. What that means is the question asks people to identify, are they a citizen, are they not a citizen, so they're living here without citizenship, whether that's as a legal resident with a green card or someone who is undocumented and therefore living here illegally. Should it be constitutional? Is it constitutional to add this question? Why or why not? Should the government, in your opinion, add this question, why or why not? You are allowed to say that yes, it's constitutional, but no, we shouldn't add it. Or you can say no, it's not constitutional, but we should add it. The key thing for both of these main questions is explaining the why or why not. So that's situation number 1. Feel free to do extra research if you want on your own. Second one is a couple years ago during the 2017-18 NFL season, many football players, professional football players, made the decision to kneel during the national anthem before games would start. The kneeling was done as a means of protest against various forms of injustice, specifically against racial discrimination and police brutality, some of the things we saw in LA 92. Is that constitutional for NFL players to kneel during the anthem? Should it be constitutional? Do you agree with football players kneeling to protest these injustices? Why or why not? So once again, don't just say what you think, but explain why you think the way you do. Situation 3 is, should the children of illegal immigrants born in the United States be provided the full rights, as stated in the Constitution, of U.S. citizenship? So their parents are here illegally, but they were born in the United States. What about their parents? What rights, if any, should they get for this? What would be your solution to the problem where parents are here illegally, but their children were born in the United States? How would you solve that issue? Once again, explain the why. And then the last situation, Bethany Christian Services, which is a faith-based, it's a Christian adoption agency. They provide adoption services, changed their policy to allow LGBT families to receive their help for adoption services. They changed this policy because they got sued. And it was part of a settlement from the Michigan Attorney General, who's like the top lawyer in the state of Michigan. So before, they would refuse service, or at least could refuse service to LGBT families, and they would do this based on their Christian agency, based on their beliefs. However, they've changed that because they got sued and it was part of their settlement. St. Vincent Catholic Charities, which is a similar agency, but it's specifically a Catholic one, is challenging, appealing this settlement in this case, claiming that it's unconstitutional to make faith-based agencies provide adoption services for LGBT families. So is that one, constitutional? Explain. And two, who do you think is right? The faith-based adoption agencies who want the freedom to refuse service for these families, or is the state of Michigan right by forcing them to do that? Explain why. So please make sure you have that filled out. Here's what this looks like. It's another Google Slides presentation. What you will do, each situation is listed here, is in the red text box. You just got to write out what your response would be. Just make sure you're completely answering each question and explaining why. That is once again due 3 p.m. today. No, this was a classwork grade. I had to double check that. Last thing for next week's test, which will be Tuesday. Here is what information will be on it. The origins of the Constitution, the Federalist debate, details about the Constitutional Convention, the structure of the Constitution, how it's set up, the Bill of Rights, applying those to situations like you've done in these practice quizzes, and later amendments. And I will make a separate Quizlet for later amendments that you guys have researched and done presentations on, so you can study all of them. And I'll explain more about exactly what you should know about them probably next week, Monday. The constitutional principles, federalism, separation of powers, checks and balances, we did a worksheet on that. And then you should also make sure you know the essential questions, because you should expect an extended response question dealing with at least one of them. Just like we've kind of always been doing here, your test on Tuesday will be open note. However, it will lack your Chromebook, and if you're not using a Chromebook, I'll make sure to have a separate version of that quiz that will be accessible to you. If you have questions about the test or about this constitutional scenarios, the Constitution and Us Today assignment, please let me know. Otherwise, Friday's work is doing retakes, finishing late missing work if you have it. All that's due Friday, 3 p.m. And I would recommend doing a little bit of test preparation. If nothing else, make sure you have your notes available to you. Have a good weekend. I will talk to you more on Monday.